Um, I want to suggest further that it's the use of digital documentation in this quick case in the conservation of a monumental sculpture as part of GSA's National Fine Arts Collection, that this is just one aspect of a broad revolution in terms of taking data, which normally was interpreted by those who had the expertise to interpret the 3D from the 2D and make it available for all parties. A little bit about GSA. The Public Building Service owns and operates and leases for its agency clients buildings around the country, ranging from historic buildings through the mid-century, modern, and then into the contemporary. Examples here in Alaska with the stripped-down modernism of the Ketchikan Federal Building, in Boise, Idaho, in the lower left, the Federal Building and Courthouse, which I think in Idaho is probably one of the most significant modernist buildings in that state, if not in that region. And then some more contemporary buildings on the right here with the Federal Building in San Francisco, Tom Main's project. All of these account for a portfolio of over 350 million square feet of rentable space in more than 8,000 properties. One of the significant advantages of having a large portfolio and large interest in real estate is being a leader, and the GSA has led in terms of sustainability, signing on early to the LEED process and early on putting 44 LEED projects into certification. More of our historic properties here, another stripped down modernist piece on the upper panels with the Anchorage Federal Building, and below our earliest, in our region at least, historic building, the Pioneer Courthouse, which frames one edge of basically the living room of downtown Portland, if you've been there. And you see on the far right a couple of images, one of a LiDAR scan, and then a point cloud, and then a finished texture mapped 3D model of the building. That's the current process. We're undertaking a full documentation of that building, as it is our singular National Historic Landmark building, but also it's also a very at-risk building in the sense that its stone surface exterior is always subject to wear. Moving into the realm of arts, and one of the areas that I've been significantly interested in as in my role as the fine art collection, and I'll just pan through a number of these shots of significant pieces in our collection. Here's some in the Northwest, the recently completed non-signed to by Lead Pencil Studio, a significant site-specific artwork. Most of the works we do are site-specific or building-specific at very least. In this case, at the Eugene Federal Courthouse, another Tom Main project that is known for the integration of the art and architecture significantly. Here more art here in Orlando, Florida. And then, of course, our earlier pieces that are significant to the national cultural heritage as well, in terms of early pieces that were either murals or sculptural pieces. Here's a recent piece, again in Seattle, with the Seattle U.S. Courthouse by Michael Fagins. I want to talk today about the art, but I want to reflect on the project that prompted this conservation process. That's the Edith Green Wendell Wyatt Federal Building, which is undergoing a significant renovation. It's currently a very important change to the Portland skyline with a series of sustainable strategies that take a very poorly performing mid-century modern Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, basically a speculative office building, and improving to a point where it's going to be one of the more sustainable buildings in terms of high-rise development, in terms of air-conditioned buildings in the nation. We're hoping for LEED platinum on this one. The building, as I said, is in downtown. It's a significant piece, and it's adjacent to a number of park. You can see here on the upper left park spaces. So it's part of the civic center development that is kind of a bright green element in downtown. You can see here some of the current ongoing construction, where we have the sloped glazed PV panel array at the roof, and then the reeded vertical aluminum extrusions, which will act as a brise-soleil on the south and southwest exposures. Daylighting strategies involving cutting into existing slabs and bringing daylighting into otherwise darkened spaces, all leading to a much more tolerable workplace for the fellow employee. Here I want to talk about the actual artwork involved in the conservation. What prompted it primarily is that the location of the sculpture really was in the way of the ideal location of the construction tower crane. And we needed that scale of work to execute the scale of work or scale of renovation that the building was going to undergo. So that's what prompted the move. Further, we evolved a strategy that made a much more significant challenge for ourselves, involving River Legend, which is the sculpture that we're moving. Understanding that we had the tools at our disposal with 3D modeling and laser documentation to go a step further in terms of the level of care that we might employ as we look at the sculpture, which was created by an artist who had passed away, and we had very little access to documentation to suggest how and construction detailing to suggest how the arch, in this case the monumental arch, was constructed. What we did understand from letters from the artist and from talking with his wife, and who continues to operate his studio in his legacy, that there was quite a bit of effort at the time of its installation on site to handwork all of the joinery in the 5 pieces that make up the entire assembly. This is the artist and his significant contribution to sculpture in the modernist period. River Legend is named such because of a Native American legacy, which suggested there was an actual natural bridge over the Columbia River at the gorge, a significant river. The legend was the takeoff point for the artist to suggest a memorial to that legend and to the native tribal origins of the Pacific Northwest. We, working with the teams, we convened a on-site meeting to discuss how we might move the piece, and it was suggested that we look at ways that would retain as much of the significant architectural fabric, the artistic fabric as the original, which was a challenge because the joinery was basically created handwork and was hairline cracks, or hairline joints, pinned together sections. This led to the use of, and here's an early structural sketch that we found in our files to suggest how the piece was pinned and installed. It's mounted at its feet on basically pads of grout and then doweled into the concrete deck. Here you can see a texture map 3D scan. That was important for us in terms of not only defining the extent and shape of the artwork, but also to understand its actual weight. The piece was created in Columbia Basin basalt, basically both hand-worked and natural finished faced stone. The concept we arrived at was to move the piece in its whole and intact. And so we embarked on a series of tests and models using the scan data and a 3D wireframe of the jig or rig that would be used to move the piece. You can see some schematics here of the typical nodes of the construction of the armature or the jig that we were using to contain the piece as we were to lift it. You can see that the lift had to occur on a dual drum crane, which allowed us to tilt and lift as we were looking to affect a progressive removal from the site without endangering the workers below. And later on, that'll be important as we attach the feet and the structure that will be needed to reposition the piece. So the scanning process, using at that time state of the art, but now today it's much smaller. The first test was a mock-up using basically pipe. In the final form, we used high-strength, custom designed nodes and spans, but we wanted to test the concept using basically a stretch wrap protection over the piece. Here another piece of basalt just uses it as a model, and then foamed in to the rig using expansive polystyrene two-part foam, and then a drop test literally to see how much the effect might have had on the piece. This project actually fulfilled two of my personal goals, one of which was to wear a bunny suit. The other one was to, as an architect, to have basically an unnatural act with an arch. I mean, really, this is taking an arch and flying it. Fulfills one of my fantasies, anyway. You can see here the assembly and process on site, where the subparts were pre-assembled, fit around the piece, and then as we got closer to the piece, they worked within to add supplemental struts. Each of these was designed to fit the surface location as closely as we could using that model. The main components of the structure are universal. That is, they can be reassembled, deassembled, and reused. That was a sustainable issue that we wanted to fulfill as well. The foaming process, and then ultimately the cut where the piece was released from the deck, in which a chainsaw type concrete saw was used. allowing us to free it from the deck, lifting the piece up over a basque of mature trees, and releasing it from the site, and then transporting it to a warehouse. The artwork, as you can see, is a fairly monumental scale. It weighs 14,000 pounds. The intent is here in October to begin a process of returning after housing the piece. Let me try and go to a yeah, let's go to, okay, thank you. And we're gonna go to, nope. Let's go here. No? No? Okay, we have a little animation showing the point cloud model being used, there it is, thank you, being used as a device to look at locations. The locations potential for the site, because the redevelopment of the site meant substantial modification. It's not showing. Oh, we have to go back into the PowerPoint? Okay, well, let me just briefly say the intent was to replace the piece in its original location. In fact, what we found in reading correspondence between the architect, Skidmore's architect, and the artist, we discovered that the piece was actually not located per the artist's wishes. And indeed, we're looking at an alternative location, and that's also prompted by the change in the site plan as a result of that substantial impact, let's call it, of the vertical brise soleil coming down onto the site. So we're going to be looking at several potential, using arts experts in terms of an art panel that we're assembling to discuss the location of the new location for the piece. Once that's done, it would simply be a matter of reversing the process. Thank you so much.